This place is called Vinales. It's a climbing route called the Cow's Head. It's Cuba's most popular climbing area. We can't stay here. If a guard comes, we'll be chased away.
Yarabis is one of Cuba's most famous climbers. He's also a very popular guide for mountaineers who come here from all over the world. Doing this is much more profitable than his former job as a vet, but it's illegal. The government doesn't approve of free climbing. These mountains are officially protected areas, considered unofficial military zones.
Everything here has to be institutionalized, has to be part of a government program. That's not the case for climbing, so I and many others do it illegally.
Yarabis's dream is to start a climbing school, but his passion is not among the professions on the government's list of newly allowed private businesses. A very popular destination among tourists, Vinales has however witnessed a boom in the number of privately owned guest houses and restaurants. In exchange for the right to use this land, Osnel hands over part of his production to the state. The rest goes into his restaurant, which he opened up recently with his wife. They're proud of their Mediterranean menu, which takes into account the reality of what's on offer in Cuba.
It's a bit Cuban, combined with a European diet. We do what we can with what we have. For example, we need 4 types of cheese for our cheese sauce, but if we can't always find 4, we make it with 3. We make do with what we have in our country. I'm not too demanding. Things are taking shape, they're evolving slowly. We're used to this situation. We've spent our whole lives waiting, and things are changing, slowly.
Today, Cuba counts 400,000 independent workers or cuentapropistas, 1/4 of them in the capital, Havana. Small businesses are popping up everywhere, as are small trade markets where people can sell their goods subject to state tax. Many have left their jobs in the public sector.
With the state, I earned in 1 month what I earn here in 1 day.
The average monthly salary in Cuba is around 15 euros. Mayelin works as a nurse in a specialized hospital. Her vending license helps her increase her income.
I have many friends who work in the health sector and do the same as me. It's the only way to live a little bit better. It's difficult to survive with just one job in Cuba. You can't make ends meet with just one salary.
The reforms introduced by Raul Castro have not put an end to poverty in Cuba and have not made up for the thousands of jobs scrapped in the public sector. Cubans also suffer from a double currency system introduced to simplify currency exchange and to favor tourism. People are paid in Cuban pesos, but many basic goods are sold in convertible pesos or cuc, whose exchange rate is 25 times higher, a system which means most people simply can't afford to buy goods at the official price.
You find all kinds of goods in the shops. The problem is having enough money to buy them.
Ration cards simply don't cover people's needs. In such an economic environment, setting up a privately run business is fraught with obstacles. Human rights militant Maria Lopez is well known in this working-class neighborhood of La Havana. Defending the rights of independent workers has become her central priority.
Everything is a problem. Why? Because taxes are too high. We're not left with enough money to buy our goods. We're forced to buy them wherever we can, in strategic places like the Cuevita. Officially, the Cuevita is a public place, but in reality it's a black market where you can buy goods cheaper. It's a very dangerous place because of the national security and police forces who question you about what you're doing. For example, if you're filming with a camera.
Today is Sunday. The market is very crowded and there are less police officers. We keep a low profile.
If this market didn't exist, we would starve. We wouldn't have anywhere to buy our goods because the shops are too expensive. If you buy in the shops, you don't make any money when you sell in the street because no one will buy your goods at that price.
Maria is only authorized to sell certain goods in specific places, but she says that doesn't allow her to earn enough to pay her taxes. Like many other Cubans, she makes ends meet by selling her goods illegally in the street where she lives. That's already cost her several fines.
This is my food for a month, for 1 month. And if I buy this, I don't buy any fish because either they give you chicken or fish. I bought this fish on the black market for 3 Cuban pesos. But when I look at what the fish cost me, I don't have enough left to pay my government license each month. Things need to be rebuilt from scratch in Cuba because it's too much for Cubans. They're angry, worried. There will be no change for the people of Cuba as long as the Castros are around. This is how the Cuban people live, with dirty water running in the streets, among the rubbish, with young people hanging out in the streets because there's no work. There's nothing for them to do. They're looking for ways to make a living, to buy a bottle of rum or food to take home. But there's always enough police. Look, this is Cuba.
It's so easy to understand.
For this dissident economist, current reforms won't drag the country out of the deep crisis it's been in since the fall of the Soviet Union.
The fundamental changes the country needs haven't come. Official figures show that Cuba's industry currently produces less than 50% of what it used to in 1989. Cuba imports 80% of its food. There's a Cuban saying that goes, "He who has faith will survive." But you know what faith means here? Having relatives abroad.
Cubans living abroad are one of the country's prime sources of revenue. Every year, Cuban Americans alone send a total of $2 billion back to relatives on the island. That's the cost of food imports into Cuba. And reforms in the farming industry, which employs more than half the workers in the new private sector, have so far failed to bring down this figure. Andres is a former university professor. He and his brothers have taken over this piece of land outside La Havana. They get 80% of the profits, the rest goes to the state. They have managed to double their pension, which was very low.
Look, there are only 3 of us working this land. In the past, the government employed 15 people here. They had losses of 50,000 pesos. Since we took over, there are no more losses. We're doing well with this contract. Because we've discovered a sense of ownership. Do you know what that means? It means a feeling that this land is mine.
For the past 3 years, the government has given farmers 1.5 million hectares of land to work in exchange for a percentage of the produce. Food supply on the island has improved, though production remains poor, and many Cubans still turn to the black market to buy food. By opening up the private sector, by allowing people to buy and sell their homes and cars in a strictly regulated market, the regime has opened up a gap in a centrally planned economy. But for many, this opening remains more of a symbol than reality. Yosuani has been a hairdresser for 26 years. He opened up his private salon on his porch 3 years ago. Independence is priceless, he says, but it doesn't pay.
The truth is, my dream is to work with good tools, quality products in a nice place, to be able to travel like any normal person. But look, I've got barely enough to eat, to live, barely enough to put shoes on my feet so I can walk and keep working. It means that for now the dream is broken. That's why Cubans all want to leave the country, to go anywhere else, even Haiti, as they say. There is change. We can go to hotels, as they say, go traveling. But there's no money. All we're missing is a change of currency and freedom of expression.